What's up everybody? So we're back out in the shop and today we're going to be working on the Kukri build. Now we're going to be putting the handle scales on it today. These are of course the handle scales that I made in the last episode. Now the goal for this is to go ahead, get the handle scales put on the knife and get them shaped and finish the whole entire handle. Now this is going to be a 2-day video just all wrapped up into one because we got to have dry time. And even though I use 5-minute epoxy, I let 24 hours go by before I actually start shaping everything because I want to make sure it cures exactly how it needs to be, because we get a lot of things hot whenever we start shaping and doing all that stuff, and I don't want to risk messing with the mechanical bond of the epoxy, so we just make sure everything cures plenty of time before we start messing with it. But that's what we're going to work on today. Handle scales on the knife, shaped. Let's go ahead and get it knocked out. So we want to start off by figuring out where we want this inlay to sit. So we kind of mark things up, get it measured to make sure it's going to land perfectly in between those first 2 pinholes. And then we just draw the outline of the handle on here so that we know where the reference point is as we start messing with it. Let's say the clamp accidentally comes off of it or something like that, we know that we can get it right back to its correct position real easily. Now we're going to go ahead and do 3/16 holes for all the pins because we're using 3 3/16 black micarta pins and 1 3/16 lanyard hole is made of brass. We're just going to use the same drill bit for all 4 holes in this handle. Now, whenever we're cutting out this particular handle, I'm going to cut on the outside of the line. Typically I'll try and remove as much material as possible, but I just want to make sure I have plenty of wood on here for whenever I start shaping everything. And, you know, just in case something shifted or something like that. So we're just going to go ahead, cut on the outside of that black line, and then go from there. Now, I've already taken and cleaned up the handle scales to get rid of some of those cutting lines from the quarter band saw, but on this step we're going to go ahead and start shaping the front of the handle scales a little bit, because this is going to be a lot easier to do while the handles are off the knife. And all I'm doing is putting a pretty steep angle towards the front of the handle scales because we're going to be doing a version of a Coke bottle handle on this, so might as well get all of this knocked out, like I said, while these are not attached to the knife, because it's a lot easier to maneuver them without the big old blade hanging off of it. And I'm showing you all of these steps so that you can actually see them. I could have made this a 8-minute video and just skipped from step to step to step to step, but I really think y'all like it whenever I show you all of these little steps, me hand sanding this area right here and shaping the handle without skipping the certain little parts. Because, you know, if you want to skip ahead in the video you can, but at least you can see these things. And what I did here was I just sanded the front of the area where the handle scales meet the ricasso with 320 grit paper and 500 grit paper and left it right there. And this is just because you can't mess with this part after the handle scales get attached to the handle, because you would risk scratching the blade. So you want to get this area finished to whatever grit sandpaper you're going to finish the rest of your scales. Now we're going to go ahead and attach the handle scales. You can see that I drilled a bunch of little holes going through the handle scales right there. That's just going to increase the mechanical bond of this knife. And I also did a couple more in the actual tang itself. Like I said, this is just purely to increase the mechanical bond with the epoxy. Little pockets for it to go into. Now, we're going to go ahead and start getting everything set up. You want to make sure you have your clamps ready. You want to make sure that everything's where it needs to be so you can just start doing this process and you're not trying to hunt for things after you start attaching the scales. Now, we put a thin layer of epoxy over the whole entire scale, and then we make sure and put a little bit of epoxy in the pinholes themselves so that you actually have a mechanical bond with the pins. And then we're going to do a light layer on the tang itself, and this just makes it to where we're not having to mess with epoxy as we're attaching everything. We can just go straight to putting everything together, and it makes it a lot easier than us trying to put epoxy in between pins and all that stuff. So now I'm just getting the pins even all the way around, so adjusting them a little bit, because you want to make sure that you have the same amount of pin material hanging out on either side of the scales so you don't accidentally have one recessed into the scales and you have to grind the scales down in order to meet that pin. So just be mindful of that. And then all I'm doing is just putting enough pressure on these clamps to make sure that they're tight, but I'm not trying to squeeze out all of the epoxy. You don't want to do that. You can over crank these and lose epoxy. Then we're going to go ahead and use some acetone and clean up the excess squeeze out off the area where the handle scales meet the ricasso. And that's simple. Now it's time to go ahead and start shaping these handles. Now this right here is just me getting rid of all of the excess material and just grinding it down to where it actually is flush with the tang of the knife. You want to be careful with this because you don't want to start gouging your handle tang. You just want to get the wood down to where it meets the actual tang itself and then start shaping it from there. But I square everything up so that I know exactly what I have to work with whenever I start contouring my handle. The last thing you want to do is start contouring your handle and you're not actually at the finished initial size. And again, feel free to skip ahead if you want to go ahead and just go straight into the handle contouring. You can. This is just purely showing the people who need to see this step how I do it. And what I have here is I have the belt hanging over the side of the platen a little bit so that I can kind of get softer edges whenever I'm shaping the inner curves of that. Now it's time to go ahead and do the curved part of the Coke bottle handle. And what you're going to do here is you're just going to kind of rock it back and forth to be able to get the contour that you want, because this handle has a pretty aggressive angle on the butt of the knife. I have to kind of rock it a little bit because the curved area on the belly of the handle is a lot shorter than the length of the curved area on the top of the handle. So you just got to pay attention to your lines, and if you've got to adjust a little bit, go ahead and adjust. And then just make sure that you put it in your hand over and over and over again so that you're not taking away too much material and you end up with an uncomfortable knife. And you also need to be careful whenever you are working with a contact wheel. This is a 8-inch contact wheel, but be careful because these contact wheels will take off a lot of material. Now that we got that initial shape, we can start contouring everything. And what I did was I just moved the belt to where it's hanging off the edge of the 8-inch contact wheel about 1/8 of an inch, so that again we don't end up with real hard lines whenever we're kind of digging into it. And then I'm just breaking those hard edges and getting everything to its initial contour. Once we get everything kind of contoured on here, we're going to go over to the oscillating spindle sander and smooth everything out. But it's a lot easier to hog off the material and get that initial contour on all of the different areas of the handle while I'm using the contact wheel. But again, you got to be really careful with this because you can easily mess up your handle scales because you take off too much material. You want to take off just enough for the handle to start feeling comfortable in your hand, and then you're going to refine all of that on a spindle sander or a small wheel attachment. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you the rest of what I did on here while I was contouring so you can see that. And again, feel free to skip ahead and go to the next step where I'm on the oscillating spindle sander if you want to go ahead and do that, or you can finish watching this right here. And I can't stress this enough, put the handle in your hand over and over and over and over again until you know that it feels comfortable. A lot of people again will shape a handle without paying attention to how it feels in the hand, and then they go a little bit too far and then they have to just go, well, I'm just gonna have to live with that. When all you gotta do is just keep putting it in your hand, keep testing the handle fit and the ergonomics over and over and over again. All it takes is a little bit of extra time to end up with a very, very good handle design. Alright, now that we're on the oscillating spindle sander, we're just going to take it and smooth out a lot of those rougher edges from the 2x72. And I'm going to do a little bit more contouring towards the belly of the knife with this, just to make it even more comfortable and index better whenever you're actually holding it. And I'll tell you, the point behind shaping a handle like this, doing this Coke bottle design, is it makes it to where you actually get a better grip on the handle. So this extra contouring is going to sit that handle in your hand a lot better and give you a better grip whenever it comes to swinging, because the size of the butt of the handle is so much wider that it just makes it suck into your hand, and it can withstand the force of you swinging this into something and not try and fly out of your hand. Definitely a cool design, and I'm happy I decided to go ahead and go that route on this knife. And once you feel comfortable with that, it's time to go ahead and hand sand. Now this part, I'm not going to show you all of it because the amount of hand sanding that I put into these would make this a 2-hour video. So we just did enough hand sanding for you to be able to see what I'm doing here. You'll notice that pretty much every single time I do any hand sanding on my handles, I go with the direction of the blade, so I go parallel to the blade the whole entire time. I do not cross over and sand from side to side or perpendicular to the blade because I don't want to create more work later. So every single time I'm sanding my handles, they go with the actual blade itself, so that whenever I start having to refine the spine, it makes it a lot easier. Now with the buffing, we're going to use a medium buffing wheel with a green polish, so a green compound, and it turns out absolutely awesome. As I'm just going through and buffing the handle, it's just starting to look more and more beautiful every pass that I go on it, and I'm really happy I went this route, and I can't wait for you to actually see it in the outro. Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap up today's vlog with a little bit of that. I mean, what do y'all think about that handle? I think it turned out absolutely beautiful. I love this wood. That beautiful burl. And then we've got black micarta pins, the brass lanyard tube, and then we've got our inlay with the burgundy, black, and mallard green going on there. Then of course our 1/8 inch thick black liners. This just turned out absolutely awesome. Nice Coke bottle shape to it. I love the way that this handle looks. Now, I did a little bit more contouring on the belly than I would typically do on a Coke bottle handle, but I wanted the knife to feel insanely comfortable, so I just worked on it till I got to the point to where I was really comfortable with it. And that is what we got there. And of course we got our beautiful blade. I just think that this turned out absolutely awesome. That awesome kukri shape with that nice drop to it. Man, that looks good. Now, super comfortable in the hand, and I cannot wait to put an edge on this, even though we're going to have to wait because probably gonna be doing that tomorrow or the next day. You know how it goes. But we're gonna put an edge on it. That's the next video. Edge on it, cut some stuff. I cannot wait to see how this performs. Hopefully it does amazing. I think it will, but we'll find out. Now guys, that's pretty much the end of this one. That is awesome. What do y'all think about it? Tell me about it. Comment section below. But like I said, That's the end of this video. If y'all would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video or one of my other videos. And if you haven't yet, bottom corner, hit that subscribe button so you get notified of all the stuff that's coming up. Plus, maybe turn on the notification bell so you also get extra notified for the stuff that's coming up. Now, thank y'all for coming by. Thank y'all for spending your time with me. Thank y'all for checking this beauty out. Y'all have an amazing day. I'll catch y'all next time.